Begin today the Gemara towards the bottom of the Vav Amid Beis, 2 lines up from the top bottom of the Yamid. Hanu Beitrei. Talk to Gemara Hanu Beitrei. There were 2 individuals. Rashi says this was brothers that inherited a house, and one got the bottom floor, and one's living on the top floor. One's living on the top floor, and the other's living on the bottom floor. What happened? Itbar Tatoi. The bottom floor, the house began sinking. So the bottom floor it's hard for him not to go into his house. The roof is coming down. It's low, too low for him to go in. So the one living on the bottom floor says to the one living on the top floor, Tov nivne, let's rebuild this house. We'll demolish the house and we'll rebuild the bottom floor, the top floor together. I can't live here like this. Amalei, so the one living on the top floor says to him, I'm living just fine here on the top floor. It's not my responsibility to have to participate with you to demolish this house because you're having an issue. Amalei, so the one living in the bottom says to him, allow me to demolish this house and I'll rebuild it. Amalei, so the one living on the top floor says, he said, Leslie, but you're going to demolish this house and meanwhile I have nowhere to live. Amalei, so he says to him, I'll rent you a place during the time when I'm doing construction. I'll rent you a place to live in. Amalei, so the one living on the top floor says, but loy terachna, I can't go through this whole hassle to move out all my things and then have to move back in. I'm not interested. I'm living here fine, and it's not my responsibility that you're suffering in the bottom, that the floor is, that it's sinking in. So Amalei, the Bachir adds, so the one living in the bottom floor answers him back. It says, but loika misterli, I can't live here. So the one on the top floor says to him, well, you could live here. It's not so convenient for you, but shufa kreisech v'hol, lie down on your stomach and crawl in, and v'shufa kreisech u'foik, when you have to go out, so bend down or go on your stomach and crawl out. It's not convenient, but you can live there. It's not enough of a reason to obligate me to move out and to go through this whole hassle. Amar Rav Chama, so Rav Chama said about this argument, Bedine ka ma'akiv. The one living on the top floor has the right to hold back the one on the bottom floor of demolishing the house, even though he's offering to take care of all of it and to give him a rental in between. But if he doesn't want, he can hold him back from doing all this. But now the Gemara explains though that it depends. There are certain limitations to this. When do I say that the one on the top floor could say that you can still live there, even if it's not convenient for you? That's only the lematu kshuri lemata masara. The beams of the ceiling did not sink in, that now there's less than 10 tvachim of height for him to go into the bottom floor. But if it sunk down, that it's already less than 10 tvachim, so then the brother living on the bottom floor says, lemata masara reshus didiyu. This is your responsibility because now your house in the top floor came down into my space. My space is at least a 10 tvachim that I have to be able to live here. Even 10 tvachim is pretty low. You have to crawl into living in a place of 10. It's lower than 10 tvachim. 10 tvachim is, let's say, about the height of this table. So if it comes lower than that height, so then you are actually already in my space. And that this space is not subjugated to you. It's my space, and therefore you're gonna have to allow me to demolish the house and rebuild it. Another point the Gemara says, when did we say that the one on the top floor has the right to say, I'm not interested in going through this whole hassle? When they didn't make a clear condition when they divided the property that if the floor comes down and I'm gonna be losing from the height of my apartment in the bottom, then they didn't make a clear condition that I'll have the right to rebuild the whole house. If they made a condition, sasri ubanu, then they have to demolish the house and rebuild it. The Gemara clarifies at what point do you say this? They made a condition that if the height is not going to be what he needs, then he can go and rebuild. What height is that? When they made this condition, so what is the height that you say that if it begins sinking, at what point do you say that he has to provide for him to build a new house? So the Rabbanan said in front of Rabbi Mishmei de Marzutre Berei Rav Nachman. In the name of Marzutre, the son of Rav Nachman, the Oma, Mishmei de Rav Nachman, that said in the name of his father. Rav Nachman, that we can compare this case here, like another halacha that we learned later here in this Masechta, regarding a person that took upon himself to build a house for his friend. and it wasn't specified what exactly is the height of the ceiling of the house. So what does that mean? When he accepted upon himself to build, how high does that ceiling have to be? So he says, Rumai, the height of the ceiling is kechatzi arkai, kechatzi rachbai. Has to be like half of the length and width of this house. And the Rashi brings here that this is learned from the way it was in the Heichal, in the Beis HaMikdash. The Heichal, the Beis HaMikdash, was 20 by 40. And half of 20 by 40, which is 60 together, is 30. And the height of the Heichal was 30 amas. So from here you see that the height of the ceiling is half of the width and the length. This is actually a pretty tall ceiling. So over here, what it's saying is that if this ceiling of the house comes down lower and less than half of the width and length, then that's part of the condition that he could demand that we're going to be rebuilding this house. That was what the Rabbanan said. So Amaluhu Rabba said to these Chachamim that said this, Lava Minulahu, didn't I once tell you, Leititli Bebuki Sriki B'Rav Nachman, don't hang empty pictures on Rav Nachman. Meaning don't say such foolish things in the name of Rav Nachman. To say that if it comes down from that level, even such a tall ceiling, and it comes down from being half of the width and length of the house, that's enough of a reason to force to rebuild. That doesn't make sense. Rather, Hachi Omer Rav Nachman, this is what Rav Nachman said, Kididairi Inchi. It's according to how people can live comfortably. And the Kama, and what is that? That he can walk into his house with a bundle of reeds from the place Mechuzah, and these were nice tall reeds, and V'hadar, and he can walk with it and turn around with it, and he's not going to bump into the ceiling. So as long as he has a nice tall ceiling that he can bring a big bundle of tall reeds in it, that's good. It doesn't say exactly what the measurement is, but it has to be a nice, comfortable, convenient height to live in. Similar story the Gemara brings with Rav Chama, that Paskin the halacha before. Hahu Gavre, to have a bani, Ashisa, there was a person that was building a wall, right behind the windows of his friend's house. Amalei, so his friend tells him, Kamaflasalai, you're darkening my house. I don't have any sunlight coming through my window. You're blocking my window. Amalei, so the person building the wall offers him and tells him, Sacharn lalachacha, I'll close up these windows that I'm blocking. And I'll build you windows further up on the wall above my where my walls reach to. Amalei, so the one of the windows that had the windows there said, "Komadisli la shisai." You're going to do this. You're going to close up the windows here. Then you're going to start drilling a hole and building windows higher up. You're going to weaken the wall. Amalei, so he offered him even more. So sanalach la shisach. I'll get rid of the wall. In other words, I'll cut down the wall until this area where the windows are, and then and I'll rebuild the top half of the wall, and I'll build windows on the top of the wall. So I'm not going to try to drill a hole within the existing wall, but the top half of the wall I'll demolish altogether, and I'll rebuild the top half of the wall. That will be sturdy. It won't ruin your wall. Amalei, so he says to him, no, I still don't agree. Ashisa mitato atika. When you have a wall, the bottom half of the wall is old construction, and the top half of the wall is a new construction, like kaima. It doesn't hold together well. The bottom wall with the cement that's there for a longer period of time, and the top wall, which is fresher cement, it just doesn't attach. It doesn't hold together well. So Amalei, so he offers them and says, you know what? I'll take down this entire wall of this wall of your house all the way to the ground. And I'll rebuild you this wall. And I'll make you the windows, like I said, above my wall that's blocking these windows you have now. Amalei, so again he refuses to accept this. He says, one new wall, in a house where the rest of the house is older walls, older construction, like again the same problem. One wall with new construction, it will not hold well with the house with the old construction. Amalei, so he offers him even further. So Sanala lokule beise, I'll demolish your entire home, ubanina loch kave bibinyana. And I'll rebuild your entire house. I'll have a whole new house, new construction, with the windows that I'll put you on top of my wall that I'm blocking you. Pretty good offer. Amalei, but the person living in the house says, Leslie duchte lemedaba. While you do construction, I have nowhere to go, I have nowhere to live. Amalei, so he offers him, I'll rent you a place during this time of construction. Amalei, so he says to him, this is the same like this previous story, like I can't go through this hassle to leave and go out and come back during this time of construction. So the question is, does he have the right to claim this and to not allow this person to put up a wall to block his windows? Rav Chomes says, Bedin kama. Yeah, he has the right to hold him back from putting up his wall against his windows. So now the Gemara asks on this, Haino hach, isn't this case here the exact same point as the previous story? What's the chiddush in this story that we don't see already in the previous story? And why do we need to bring over here that Rav Chama paskened here? This halacha is similar to what Rav Chama paskened before. And says the Gemara Hakamash Malon. In this case, the chiddush here is the Afal Gab the Mishtamish El Tivne Ubeitzivi Baalme. This wasn't the house that he even lived in. This was a house that was used for storage, for storing there his straw or wood, even though it's just a storage house. Nevertheless, he can still say that it's too much of a hassle for me to take out the things of my storage for you to rebuild this place, this house, and then bring my stuff back in. Before, I was talking about a house that he was living in. There, he said that he could hold him back. Here, it's a bigger chiddush.
What do you need the windows in such a house?
I guess he still needs light. He still wants to have light. Some takas say that the reason why the Gemara knows, how does the Gemara know that this is talking about a place that he wasn't living in? Because if it was actually a place that he was living in, when the person building the wall offered him that I'm going to remove the windows from where they are and I'll build you windows higher up, he could have just simply said, in a house, have windows all the way at the top. Who needs windows all the way at the top? You need windows, regular windows that you can look out from. Elamai, the Gemara understands it must be that it was a storage, and all you just need is some sunlight for your storage. Hanu bei Terei Achi. Another story, this is also a psak din from Rav Chama. There were two brothers, the Palgi Bade Adodi. They divided the inheritance. Chad Matye Aspalida. One of them got in his part an Aspalida. Rashi says Aspalida is a traklin yofa, a beautiful house, mansion. Taisva says that it means he got a cave. Other pshatim. One of them got, let's go with Rashi's pshat, he got a beautiful mansion. And the other brother got in front of this mansion, Matye Tarbitze. He got a beautiful, nice garden. Now, Ozalahu the Matye Tarbitze, the one that inherited the garden, what did he do? The Kobani Ashise Apumidas Polida. He went and built a wall right in front of this house. And he's blocking now the light coming into the windows of his house. Amalei, so he says to his brother, Come aflis alai. You're making it dark in my house. How do you have the right to build a wall here, right in front of my windows? Amalei, so his brother says, it's my right. Bididi kabanina. I'm building the wall in my property. This is my inheritance. You got the house, I got the garden, and I can build a wall wherever I want. Rav Chomes says, Bidin ka amalei. That he's right. He has the right to build in his property, even though he's making it dark in this in this house. So Rashi here explains the reason why this case is different than the previous story, where he had a taina that you're blocking the light from my house, is because over here he didn't have a chazaka of using these windows for an extended period of time, for 3 years. Only when do you say that you can't block a person's windows if he has those windows there for a period of 3 years, and now you want to come and put up a wall there to block that? But over here they just inherited right now. He got the house and he got the garden in front. So you have the right to go and put up a wall in front of his house. That's Rashi's pshat. Taisus though disagrees. Taisus says it can't be that the story here in this Gemara is that he mamish built a wall in front of his windows and he was blocking the light from coming into his house. It must have been a wall that was further away, and he wasn't mamish blocking the light of his house. Elamai, the taina of the one living in the house was that before you put your wall here, I have fields that are further out, and I was able to see from my house what's doing in my fields. Now you're blocking my vision. It's not the issue of light. You're blocking my ability to see what's going on in my fields. And for that, Rav Chama says that he has the right to put up the walls. He's not blocking his light. He's just blocking his vision to see, and he has the right to build. So Ravina asks Rav Ashi about this psak din here. Why is this any different from this that we learned in the Braise, that Shnei Achin Shecholku, two brothers, divided an inheritance. Echad mem notal stei kerem. One of them got a vineyard. Vechad mem notal stei lovan. And another one got right next to it a field for grain. So Yeshloi lebala kerem, the one that's working in the vineyard, has also space. Dalad ames bezdei lovan. He gets a space of 4 ames that he can go into his brother's property, the field, the grain field, to be able to go there. In order to be able to do the work in a vineyard, you have to be able to go with your oxen into the property that's near you, because in the vineyard itself there's no space. It's impossible. So when they divided, So part of the division is the fact that the one that gets the vineyard has the right to go in with his machresha, with the shvarim, with the oxen into his brother's property in the grain field. Shalmanas ken chalku. That's the condition of when they divided. It's understood that he has that right. So the Gemara is asking, we should say the same thing over here. When you have one that gets the beautiful mansion, and the other one gets a garden in front of it, it's understood that part of my rights in the mansion is also that ear space of the field or the garden that's in front of my mansion, that you shouldn't be able to build a wall. You can't come and say that I could build a wall right in front of your mansion, according to Rashi, to block the light, or according to Taisus, to block the vision. Just like over there by the vineyard, it's understood that I have the right to come with my oxen into your grain field. Over here, it's understood that I have certain ear space rights from your garden. So Rav Ashi answers, it's not the same thing, because Hassam, the Alula Dodi, over there, what must have happened is, if one got a vineyard and the other gets a grain field, the one that got the vineyard, so he had to compensate his brother for getting a piece of inheritance that's not as valuable as his vineyard. So because he compensated him for that, so therefore he has the rights to go with his oxen and his machresha into his brother's property. Aval Hacha, so the Gemara continues and says, so what's the story over here? If that's what you're saying, that over there, he must have compensated his brother for getting the better part of the inheritance. So, but over here, what's the story? The one that got the beautiful mansion, he did not have to compensate his brother that got the garden that's in front of it without just a plain garden. He definitely had to compensate his brother for that. Are we speaking over here about people that are fools? He gets a beautiful mansion and he just gets a garden. He definitely compensated him for that, so he should have the rights to prevent him of putting up a wall here. So the Gemara says the high shakel espelide, the high shakel tarbitze v'loy oladodi. One gets a beautiful mansion, the other one just gets a garden, and he didn't compensate him for this. So Amalei, so Rav Ashi explains him, no, you're right. The Ololad Dodi, definitely he compensated him for the fact that he got a beautiful mansion. But what did he do? What did he compensate him for? The Meilivni, Kshuri, for the bricks and the beams, Vahordi and the boards. Well, in other words, he's not just getting a property, he's getting a beautiful house, a beautiful mansion. So for the value of this mansion, he compensated him for it. But however, this additional thing here, the rights to be able to prevent them of putting up a wall, to have that ear space of the garden in front of the mansion, that he didn't compensate him for. So therefore he can't prevent them of putting up a wall. But a more basic question on this is, why can't the brother that got the mansion say, Meikare ispalida? When we divided and I compensated you and I got a mansion, I got a nice mansion to live in. Ispalida palgasli, my portion was this mansion. Hashta, now by you putting up the wall, mashrusli idruna. Instead, it's not a mansion anymore. It's just this dark room. It's a dark place. So it's just not the same place that I had before. Here it's mashma like Rashi's pshat, that the issue is that it's going to be a dark room. So Amar Rav Shimi Barashi says that's not a taina. Why is it not a taina? That before it was a mansion and now it's a dark room? Because Shema ba'alma paligle. When they divided, the fact that they made up that you're going to get the mansion and I'm going to get the garden, the mansion doesn't mean it has to actually be a mansion. It means it's just a name. It's a name of a mansion, but in actuality, even if it's a dark place, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. And the Gemara brings a source for this. Milay Tanya, didn't we learn in a Braise? A person says to his friend, I'm selling you a property which produces a core of grain. If you plant in it, it's big enough that it will produce a core. And even if it only produces half of that, that's a lesach is a half a core, the sale takes effect. Why? Because he's selling him a property that had that name. It had a name of a base core. And Vuhudim Miskari base core. And it's taka a place that has that name of base core, even though it doesn't produce this base core of grain. And this is something that has to be, as Taisus here says, has to be known between the buyer and the seller. It can't just be something that the buyer didn't know about. So therefore it's understood that you just meant the name base core, but it doesn't actually have to produce it. Similar pardas tani moichalach, a person says, I'm selling you an orchard. There's no trees, there's no pomegranates here. He gets the sale takes effect. He sold him a place that has the name at Pardes. And Vudim Miskari Pardes, and I had that name, so then the sale takes effect. Or another case, he says, I'm selling you a vineyard. Even if there's no vines there. The sale takes effect. He sold them only a name. And that's if it's actually called a vineyard. So the Gemara is arguing, maybe by an inheritance, we could say the same thing. When they divided the Ispalida, this mansion, with the garden, so the deal was, you're getting the mansion. It has a name mansion. That's the portion of the property you're getting. The fact that now it's not going to actually be a mansion, it doesn't matter. But the Gemara says you can't compare. Me, dummy, how could you compare to that case of a sale? Hasam, there, the seller tells the buyer, it was understood. Everybody knew that I'm selling you this property that has this name. You knew this, and this is exactly what you were paying for. Taisus here also says that it's a case where the money that he paid is according to what it is. You see that he paid a cheaper price because it wasn't exactly what the name makes it sound to be. So over there, it's understood that that's what you're buying. But here, when it comes to an inheritance, Motzi Amalei, the one that got the mansion, could say to him, Adaite dahachi palgi. It was this intention that we made this division, that I'm going to live there in this mansion, like my father lived there. You're going to get the garden and you're going to use it the way your father used it without putting up a wall, and I'm going to live in the mansion the way my father lived there. That's the way inheritance works. So they said to this question that Ravina asked that no, actually it doesn't work this way. The two children of Rav Chisda, one was called Yenuke, one was called Kshisha. Yenuke means young, Kshisha means old. According to Rashi, in another place, Rashi says that these were two of his sons that actually had the same name. So one was called the younger one, and one was called the older one. Taisus here says actually that Yenuke was the older one. That's why he comes first in the Gemara. And he's called Yenuke because he was born in Rav Chisda's youth. That's why it's called Yenuke. So they both came and said as follows. They said to Ravashi, Nerdoi l'tamayu. Nerdoi follows his opinion, his reasoning. We're talking here about Rav Chama. Rav Chama was from Nerdoi, just like Shmuel, that was also from Nerdah. So the fact that he said that this one that got the garden has the right to put up a wall, even though he's blocking the window of the one that got the mansion, it's because was the opinion in Nerdah, the Amar of Nachman Omar Shmuel, Ha'achen shecholku, brothers that divide inheritance. Ein lahem, they don't have the ability to demand from one another. Loy derech ze al ze. So if there's two properties and there's a derech, in order to be able to get to an inner property, you have to have a pathway to go there. But now that they divided the properties, even if when their father was alive, there was that pathway there. But once they divided, the brother that lives on the outside can prevent the brother from the outside from going through there. He has no derech, and also no right to stop his brother of putting up a wall to close the light from that comes into the windows, the case that we're talking about here. And also you don't have no right to go and put a ladder in my property if one brother gets the bottom floor of the house and the courtyard around it, and the other brother inherits the top floor, and he wants to put a ladder there to be able to go to the top floor. He doesn't have that right. If there's two fields that one wants to bring the water from a river through his brother's field to get a canal of water to come into his property, he doesn't have that rights either. Once they divide it, you don't go back to the status the way it was before, the way it was by the father. Each brother has his own space, and if you're going to want to get any rights to using your brother's property, you're going to have to pay for that separately. And he added, V'hizoru behen, be careful with these halachas mentioned here. Shahalachas kvuasein. These halachas are fixed. This is halachas that you have to pass in this way. That was Shmuel's opinion, and this is what Rav Chama's psak was based on as well. One got the garden, one got the mansion, and each one has their own full rights to do whatever they want in their garden. And if you want to take away his rights to put up a wall there, you're going to have to compensate him for that separately. What the Gemara brings though, V'Rava Omar, or another gersa here is that it's Rav. Shmuel and Rav argued about this. That Rav said, Yeshlam. No, that they do have a right in all these different scenarios we said here. You have a right to not allow them to block your windows and to all these different things we said, to have that pathway. Just like it was by the father, you do have that rights. So this is actually a machlekes. Another story the Gemara brings, this is also a psak din from Rav Chama. There was a document for a loan that Yisayimim had, that their father was owed money. But now the borrower had a tavra, he had a receipt that he already paid the loan. Rav Chama, so Rav Chama said about this. Now you would think if the borrower has a receipt that he pays, so now you should take the document of the loan that the Yisayimim have and you should tear it. It was paid. But Rav Chama said, we can't collect with this document of the loan that the Yisayimim have, but a mikra le karinale. On the other hand, we're not going to tear this document either. We can't use it to collect the loan because the nafik tavra, because here the borrower has a receipt that he paid. But at the same time, nikra le karinale, we're not yet going to tear this document of the loan because the chigodli yasmi, because when the Yisayimim will get older, dilme maiseraye umarele, maybe they're going to find proof that this receipt that the borrower has is forged or it's not true, and therefore they're going to prove that the document that they have is still valid. So therefore we're going to wait for them to be older to see if they can prove anything different than what we see, the receipt that we see. So Rav Acha Bereder says to Ravina about this psak din that hilchas semai. What's the actual halacha regarding this? Do we paskin like Rav Chama said here? Amalei, so he said to him, Bekulu hilchas Rav Chama. We always paskin like Rav Chama. Levar mitavre. Besides this halacha that he paskin here in the case when there is this receipt. Desadi b'shakri loy machzekina. Because we're talking here about a receipt that's signed by witnesses that the loan was paid. Why should we have any suspicion that Adam signed falsely, that this is a false document? So if we see this receipt, we know that the loan was paid, and you tear right away. You tear the document of the loan that the Yisayimim have. But Mazutre, Bereder Rav Mari Amar, but Mazutre said that here we do paskin Rav Chama even in this case, and he explains why. He said because if it's true that this is a good receipt, so then the borrower should have showed this receipt when the father was alive. So the Rishonim here say the case here is when the father was alive, the father already demanded the loan, and the borrower didn't take out the receipt and say, "Hey, you paid me." Why didn't he take out the receipt then? The fact that the borrower didn't show this receipt then, so there's a good reason to believe that this is false witnesses, it was forged, and therefore we give a chance to the Yisayimim when they become older to prove that the loan was not paid up yet. There's a discussion here in the Rishonim about this, that we say that there's a suspicion that this is a forgery and the Eidim are not, that's Eidei Sheker, whether this is talking about a receipt that was already verified, the Shtar Mekuyim, or not. Some Rishonim say if it's a Shtar Mekuyim, there's no way we're going to be suspicious that this is a forgery. It must be that the Shtar wasn't Mekuyim. There are Eidim that want to be Mekayim it now. We prevent them of being Mekayim it because of this position, suspicion we have. Going back to the halachis of people that are living together in a courtyard. So we force him, meaning one in the courtyard could force another, livnois beis shar, to build a gatehouse in front of the entrance of this chutzner. So the gatehouse, the way it's described here, a little bit different than the way Rashi described it before in the Masechta, that it's this little structure that you build in front of the entrance to the courtyard, so that when people come into the courtyard, instead of just having the entrance straight ahead of you in front of the street, you can see in, and it takes away from the privacy. So you build this little house in front of it, this little room in front of it, and then you have the doors on the side walls. So you have to walk in from the side, and then you go into the courtyard. So they can force one another to build this beis shar, this gatehouse, and also videlis. They force each other to build a door, l'chatzar, for the courtyard, to have a door in order to make it safe, and not so people ganav can't come in. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, "Loi kol hachatzeros ru'uyos lebeis shar." Not all courtyards need a gatehouse. You can't always force to build it. Another din, and this has been again to people that are living in one city. One forces another living in the city, live nicely here to build for a city, chayma, a wall, udlasayim, and doors for the wall, a briach, and a crossbar that it should be safe. Not all cities need a wall around it. How long should a person be living in a city? That he has the halacha like being a resident of the city, that he has to participate in whatever the needs of the city is, like a wall or whatever else it is. Yud beis chodesh, 12 months. Akana beis dira, if you bought a house though in the city, then arei kanshir miyad. As soon as you buy a house, then you are like a resident of the city and you have to participate with the needs of the city. Okay, so the Gemara begins with the first halacha, building a gatehouse. The Mishnah says that one could force another to build his gatehouse. Shall we say the Beishar Mal Yisihi? That building a gatehouse in front of the entrance of a courtyard is a good thing. It's something that's beneficial for the people of the courtyard, and it prevents the hazakriya of the people walking by, and it's a good thing. But for Ha'ahu Chasida, there was this pious individual, the Haviragel Eliyahu, the Havmishtoy Ba'adei, that he was accustomed to Eliyahu coming and speaking with him. Ava Beishar, he built a gatehouse in front of the entrance to his courtyard, and Visu Loi Mishtoy Ba'adei, and Eliyahu and Avi stopped coming and speaking to him. And the reason is because when you build this gatehouse in front of the door of your courtyard, so now poor people that want to get into your house, it distances them and you can't hear them knocking or them calling out to you. So because of this, Eliyahu and Avi can't stop coming speak to him. So the Gemara answers, it depends how you're building this. And here the Gemara gives a few different options of what the case here is. Like kasha, so there's no question about this. Ha megavoy. Here it's when you're building the gatehouse on the inside. When you build it on the inside, so then that's a problem because the poor people stand outside, and the gatehouse that you built on the inside is like another layer of another wall that doesn't allow their voice to reach you, and it's going to stop the poor people from coming in. Ha me'avroi. And here it's when you built the gatehouse on the outside, and you built it in a way that they can walk into that gatehouse and then knock directly on the door of your courtyard, and you'll hear them just like before. So you're not blocking the poor people. Or another answer, in both cases you built the gatehouse on the outside. But there's no contradiction. The islay deles. Here's when you put up a door in the gatehouse so they can't come in, so that blocks the poor people. The lesle deles. When you build it and there's an entrance, they can come in on the side of this gatehouse, but there's no door, so they can come in, so it doesn't block the poor people. Or another option we can say is in both cases the gatehouse has a door. Here it has a lock on it, and therefore it blocks the poor people from coming in. And the lesle pesachas. Here there's no key and lock that you have in it, and so there's no problem they can come in. Or another option, in both cases you're building the gatehouse with a door, with a lock. And it's not a contradiction. The lock, the key is on the inside, so it prevents the poor people of coming in. If the key and lock is on the outside, and the key is there's a lock there, but there's a key they can go into this gatehouse, so then it's not a problem. And now you're not blocking the poor people, and that's what the Mishnah said, that you can force each other to build this gatehouse. What did the Mishnah say afterwards? Rav Shimon Gamliel says you don't always have to build. Tanya, Rav Shimon Gamliel said, "Loi kol chatzeros ruyos lebeishar." Not always there's a courtyard demand to have a gatehouse in front of it. Elo chatzer asmuchol reshus harabim. If your courtyard is right near the street, then ruyos lebeishar. Then it needs a gatehouse in front of it. But if it's not near the reshus harabim, so then ein ruyos lebeishar. It doesn't need this gatehouse in front of it. So now the question is, why do Rabbanan argue on this? If you're not near a street, why should you build this gatehouse here? But with Rabbanan, the Rabbanan still disagree. Because Zimnin, the Dochki, B'nei Reshus Harabim V'ayilavaso. In a time when there's heavy traffic, it could be a spillover from the area where there's the thorough, there's the street, and people of the Rabbin will be right over here in front of this courtyard, and it is necessary to build this gatehouse in front of the entrance of this courtyard. And the Mishnah spoke about a city. So Rav Shimon Gamliel said, Rav Shimon Gamliel loy kol ha'yaros ru'yos l'chayma. Not all cities need a wall around it. And so what city does need a wall? Ela'ir asmucha l'sfar. A city that's near the border, ru'yos l'chayma, that needs a wall around it. V'she'ein asmucha l'sfar, but if it's not near the border, ein ru'yos l'chayma, there's no danger of an army from another country coming here near. It's not near the border, so it doesn't need a wall. But Rabbanan disagree. Zimnin the makro v'asi gaise. Sometimes there will be an army that will come even from an area that's further away, and they'll come here to this city. So every city you could demand from the people of the city to participate to build a wall. Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Yochanan the following shaila. When you collect the funds to participate to build a wall around the city, how do you collect the funds? Do you go according to, you take a head count of how many people, let's say there's a family of 5, so they have to pay according to 5 people. A family of 10, you have to pay 10. You go according to the amount of people. Or you go according to the amount of assets you own. Each person is participating in building a wall to protect his property, his assets. So you look at how rich or poor, how large your property is, and everyone pays accordingly. Rav Yechanan answered, you go according to the value of your properties, of your assets that you own. My son Elazar kava b'masmeres. He said, affix this with nails, meaning this is a halacha that is true that you should go according to. Taisus explains the reason you go according to shvach mamin is because if the point of building the wall would be because we're trying to protect people's lives, at the point here that people's lives are in danger, so then you should go according to the amount of people that are in your household. But since the reason you're building the wall is not because we're afraid of sakanas nefashis, we're afraid of people coming and stealing from you and taking from your assets, so you go according to how rich or poor people are. There was another version of how Rabbi Elazar asked the shaila. When you collect the funds for building the wall around the city, do you go according to the people that are closer to the outside part of the city, closer to the wall of the city, so they are more exposed, they're closer, they need to pay more, and the ones that are further in have to pay less? Or no, we go according to the amount of assets you have, the amount of protection you need. And he answered him, you go according to where your house is positioned in the city, how close are you to the end of the city. And Elazar, my son, fixed this with nails that you should always pass in this way.